Aha, there we go. Woohoo! We are live. Hello, everybody. This is Catherine Toon. I'm getting myself organized. I thought I was organized, but I need a little bit of extra organization. So here we are. Hi, good morning. It is a hot Sunday morning here in Colorado. And then we're in the middle of the week, we're going to have I think it's like 50-degree drop, and we're going to get snow, according to the forecast. We will see. So my daughter, Veronica, is really bummed because she's worked really hard on her garden. So she's going to have to harvest everything and have a short season. And the other thing that's kind of gross about that is it tends to mess with the leaves turning. They tend to all turn brown. So anyway, that's what it is. But I know you've got your own things going on. We got some crazy weather going on in multiple places around the country. And we're in this together, right? In the midst. So we're going to talk about today, what does a beautiful church look like in the midst of ugly? You know, there's a lot of ugly going on, and I know you know that. I know you've been feeling that. It's kind of a painful time, right? We have the corona pandemic. That is a global issue, and smack with all the financial fallout for so many who've lost their jobs or their investments tanked, or all of that. And then we in the U.S. we have the presidential election. I don't even know what to say about that. And it's just rancorous and explosive and finger pointing and all of that. It is just not nice. And then in the middle of that, we have a lot of racial tensions and riots and all sorts of things, as well as protests and all of that. And, the Lord is so clear that in the midst of all of this shaking, things that need to be shaken off, racism needs to be shaken off, and all sorts of ways of looking to things that are other than our source. Politics is a conduit, but it's not our source, right? And that would be very disillusioning to hang all our hopes on a candidate and stuff, just because they're not our source. They weren't designed to be. They were designed to be conduits. So we pray for our leaders and just believing for things to get better, for reform to happen, all of that. It all needs to happen. But in the middle of this, we who are followers of Christ, and so I know some people have gotten really shaky in that, right? They've gotten really shaky. Just because it is a crazy time. And, the times when things are really hard is the time when you get your roots, when you have the opportunity to have your roots go really deep, because you don't have the illusion of anything else. One of the reasons why in the third world countries that they see so much healing, so they don't have any other options, right? It's not like they're on a wait list for, an organ transplant or for things like that. And so their roots have to go deep because they have no other options. But when you've kind of had it good and easy in some ways and privileged in some ways, we can get kind of lazy and really kind of get lax in terms of where we're looking for our source. And so, but this particular topic today, we're talking about a beautiful church. I'm writing my book, Redeeming Beauty. So this is actually from some of the revelation. I was up at like 3:00 this morning. I just couldn't sleep. And so I was writing early this morning, so it was nice and quiet. But what happens to the body of Christ? I'm a real optimist, and I think I have backing for that, because we are going from glory to glory. So tough times is just a time to take advantage of what you know and have that rooted deeper in you, so that we can bear more fruit and more excellent fruit. Sometimes we do have a pruning season, and that's not because God is nasty or punitive or gross. It's because he's wild about his children and he wants us to be everything we're called to be. And so he will take advantage of situations. He doesn't send the situations, but he will take advantage of them to bring about more fruit and more excellent fruit. And guess what? Fruit is really what we're talking about. So what is beautiful, people that you're innately attracted to, if it's just a beautiful on the outside, man, okay, nice. Okay. And then done. I'm sorry, just spit at the camera. So lovely. It's the anointing. But things that are beautiful are eternal things, are actually the spirit of love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and gentleness and faithfulness and self-control, are the fruit of holiness, which is wholeness, which is beautiful because it's eternal. It's connecting with who you are on an eternal basis. And so, I was just kind of meditating, and where is our issue? Let's face it, we are touchy. Could I dare say that, people are stressed, they're angry. There's all sorts of things that are driving things that are godly things, and then in the mixture of ungodly things. And so it's a mixed bag. So, and kind of studying this, the Lord was taking me to James 1:19. I'm not a huge fan of James from the standpoint of, I consider it kind of a transition because there's not the deeper revelation of grace that Paul had. But some really good, juicy things, and I think we can take advantage of that. So if you go to James 1:19 through 21, this is in the Passion Translation. It says, "My dearest brothers and sisters," I love that already, because what does it mean that we're embracing one another? And we're not just brothers and sisters, but we're dearest brothers and sisters. So this is a term of endearment. So if there are people that you draw close to you, and you're trying to prepare, and you're trying to, admonish in the best sense of the word, that there's some things that are required because rough situations are coming. It says, take this to heart. So we might want to sit up and do that. Be quick to listen. Isn't that a thing? Oh my goodness. When there's so much screaming and this, but not a whole lot of hearing. And, we need it. I need to do that more. And so there's so many good things about this time that have helped me be better, right? Be better. We need to be better. Be quick to listen, but slow to speak, right? And be slow to become angry. I think in a kind of a generation which is really focused on my rights and don't, my whatever and my this and me that and all of that. And now everybody needs a voice. So let's be clear. Everybody needs a voice. But, it's amazing how voices are heard when they're surrounded by people who listen. I think a lot of times people are so angry, and if they are listened to, right, it diffuses anger. Why? Because our goal is not to listen to get my point in, to figure out my rebuttal. The goal is to listen to understand. And if you've got two parties that are listening to understand, guess what's going to happen to that relationship? It's going to bring intimacy. It's going to bring trust. It's going to bring healing. When people feel heard, right? It heals. It heals, right? It says, and be slow to become angry. So we just need to check ourselves. If we're kind of touchy, we've got things. And when you're under stress, you get angry a lot more, right? When you're fearful, oh my goodness, people that are angry, a lot of fear that's driving it, right? And so, you're not responsible for other people, but you are responsible for yourself. And if you find yourself sliding into that, well, do a self-check. Why am I so angry? Oh, It's because I feel threatened. It's because I feel afraid. It's because I feel attacked. It's because I feel like I'm not being heard, right? It says, for human anger is never a legitimate tool to promote God's righteous purpose. Now, there is a righteous anger, which is good and holy, and it sustains itself, but it's also diffused in the sense of when things are met appropriately, it's diffused. It also handles itself well. It says, so this is why we abandon everything morally impure of wicked conduct. Okay, abandon those things. Why? They're not good for you, and they're not who you are. Instead, with a sensitive spirit. You see, when we are all about our rights and our whatever and our point and I'm right and you're wrong and all of that, we're hardening our hearts to one another, and we become less sensitive, right? Because if I'm busy trying to get my point out, I'm not listening to you, right? It says, which has been implanted with our natures. With a sensitive spirit, we absorb God's word, which has been implanted in our spirits, within our nature, for the word of life has power to continually deliver us. And we need a lot of deliverance. Now, this is not sitting on your chest and screaming out of spirits, but we need to be delivered from attitudes and ways of being that are harmful to ourselves and harmful to other people, that violate love, right? I like that Brian Simmons' commentary. It says, God's righteousness will never attach itself to human anger. Now, there's divine anger. Guess what God's angry at? He's angry at injustice. Yeah, there's a lot of injustice, but is he angry at people? Is he going to smite people? No, interestingly, that is not God's spirit. And when Jesus was with his disciples and Samaria was rejecting him and not listening to him, his disciples said, shall we call down fire on them? And Jesus said, he rebuked them and he said, you do not know what spirit you are of. We're not calling down fire on people unless it's the fires of love. That's another thing. Okay. But it's not fires of punishment and retribution. It says in Romans 12:19, it says, beloved, don't be obsessed with taking revenge, but leave that to God's righteous justice. For the scriptures say, if you don't take justice in your own hands, I will release justice for you. You entrust yourself to God, who is, so in other words, I'm not taking out my revenge on people. You did this to me, so I'm going to take it in my own hands. And it's like, I'm not trusting God to promote justice. And then I become ugly, right? It says, and if your enemy is hungry, buy him lunch, win him over with kindness. For your surprising generosity will awaken his conscience, and God will reward you with favor. It says, never let evil defeat you, but defeat evil with good. There's a lot of evil going on, and how do we respond when we've been despitefully used, when there has been a glaring injustice? And we've all had them. And, my heart goes out, to African Americans where there's been, incredible injustice, and how do we conduct ourselves, and to children who've been abused. And, we just got a report on 30-something kids that were rescued out of the sex trade industry. Oh my goodness, how do you recover from that and all of that? And, I hear stories every single day of just mind numbing. It is unbelievable what human beings can do to each other. It is, I have no words. Yeah. And, we have those things. And so how do we overcome that? Well, we're needing to entrust someone bigger than ourselves. When we take it in our own hands, we become what we hate. When we take on, tit for tat, that's the law, right? Isn't the law? The law is always bondage. And then when we excuse ourselves in that, and you know what, that's not God's way. Because and a lot of times, and I understand people's frustration, because it's like, when's it going to get better? Well, I know it can get better with you. It can get better with you and your choices. So how did God conquer evil? Let's think about this. Let's pan out a little bit. Well, Jesus, hi there, Cobus. Jesus became sin. He became the very thing that had struck down human beings. Right now, sin is a way of being that's not your being. It's an identity. It's a false identity that causes you to act in sinful behavior. Right? Cobus, what do you say? The difference is the true reflection of who Christ is within you. Reflect the truth and love of Christ, the true identity. Oh my goodness, that will preach. That is so awesome, Cobus. Thank you. That's brilliant. Absolutely. So what does love do? Love sacrifices for the other. Love is other-centered. Love is other-serving. So a beautiful church is called to love. Oh my goodness. And you probably, let me just see, particularly if you're listening to my program, you would probably get that right? But the issue is, what does that look like? And what does that look like with feet on it, right? We were given the mandate of love, and I'm going to talk about what that looks like with feet on it, but let me back up a little bit. Let's go to John 13:34-35, and I'm going to read this from the Amplified Version. It says, I'm giving you a new commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. And sometimes we gloss over things, but let's just sit with that. So we're to love one another as Jesus has loved us. Okay, so let's be very clear. That is impossible. That is totally impossible by Jesus' standards. I might send you a loaf of bread, but I'm not sure I'm going to be strung up on the cross for you, right? It says, by this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you have love and unselfish concern for one another. So God is love, right? This is established. And by definition, he's called us to look like that. We are his beautiful church, right? We are his holy church. Holiness is beautiful. Another word for holiness is wholeness, And in wholeness, we see with 2020 vision, we see our brother and sister, we see our enemy with the eyes of Christ and realize that we really don't have enemies, okay? So what does love look like? Let's talk about that. And I'm going to read this from the Amplified Version. I was enjoying that this morning. It says, love endures with patience and serenity. This is a hard time. This is a time we're called to endure. It's not fun, but you know what? Endurance, you get some backbone when you endure stuff. When things are cushy all the time, you kind of become jello, right? And so love endures with patience and serenity. Why can you be serene? Well, because you're hooked up to a different source that is eternal, that never fails, right? And talks about that love is kind and thoughtful. Now, what does kindness and thoughtfulness look like in a place where we've got all this crazy looking like? Well, I don't know what that's going to look like specifically for you, but it will look like something, and it will look kind. In other words, we're not going to attack one another. We can disagree and disagree passionately. I mean, absolutely. But let's love one another, because love is not up for grabs. Okay. Your opinions, your political standpoint, your whatever, yeah, that's up for grabs, right? Love is kind and thoughtful. It is not jealous or envious. Love does not brag. It's not prideful or arrogant. It is not rude. Oh my goodness, do we have rudeness? And people, I think, feel justified in rudeness. Why? Because someone is rude to them, so we're just rude back, okay? And that's kind of our response, right? It is not self-seeking. It is not provoked, nor overly sensitive and easily angered. we have a very, very touchy population. Now, part of that is because people are stressed to the max. Understandable. Okay. But part of it is that we've kind of given ourselves a pass because that's what self-control is for, right? It's not that you don't internally feel, hi Rita, it's not that you don't internally feel stuff, but when you're overly sensitive and easily angered, you're just looking for something to be angry at, right? And so, it's like the rest of the population needs to walk on eggshells because we're so ready to take offense at so many things. And that is not love, right? And it goes on. It says, it is not provoked nor overly sensitive and easily angered. It does not take into account a wrong endured. Wow, that's a hard one. Isn't that hard? That's hard for me. I've taken into account some wrongs endured, and I've really had to see my ego just kind of jiggle around as I bring it to the foot of the cross and trust the Lord for justice that does not look like it's coming. Okay. I'm having to, because there's a bigger picture here than what I'm seeing, than what you're seeing. Listen, if God can't pull this thing off, I don't know what we think government's going to do, or, or, a leader or something, right? It says it does not take into account a wrong endured. It does not rejoice at injustice. So on one hand, you're not you're not focusing and going over and over and over this slide and that slide and this slide. I'm telling you, when we rehearse how people have harmed us, betrayed us, used us, abused us, it re-traumatizes it, and it causes that to be ingrained. And we start to see everything through this trigger, right? However, there is a balance. So let me help you out here. It does not rejoice at injustice. Okay, so you know what? When there is injustice, it's a thing. We just have to trust the Lord with it. But rejoices in the truth. There is a truth, and we do want truth to win out when right and truth prevail. Love bears all things. You want to know how you can endure. It's because you're made in the image and likeness of love, who bears all things, regardless of what comes, believes all things. And I love this next part, looking for the best in each one circumstance, in each one person. Because that enemy, that's your enemy, is actually a son and daughter of God, created in his image and likeness. And maybe they're not behaving in a way, that is godly. Okay. People do horrible things. Right, let's be clear. And we've all been on the receiving end of that. But that doesn't mean that they're your enemy, right? It hopes all things, remaining steadfast during difficult times, dang, right? Endures all things without weakening. Love never fails. It never fades nor ends. You see, a beautiful church is beautiful because it's made in the image and likeness of love and self. And love is exquisitely lovely. So that means you are exquisitely lovely. And it's awakening to that in you. And so in that place where, wow, there's this high water mark of all these impossible things. Like, how do you love your enemies? If someone burns down your business, it's really hard. If someone murders someone, we have lots of that, unfortunately, going on. And we've got we've got cities ablaze. We've got, financial ruin. We've got people who cover up viruses. We've got all sorts of stuff happening, right? It's not just a tall order. It's impossible, except that you were made for impossible things. So in that place where you're made for impossible things, that means you're one with the person of love, you're one with God, and you are made as a champion to do impossible things, right? But that requires dependency. It requires dependency upon one in a deeper level. Listen, this is our opportunity to get rooted and grounded so much deeper in God, in the one who loved us and gave himself up for us. Let me be clear. You are one with God, okay, because he chose you to be one with him before the foundation of the world, before him in love. So that was his choice. But to be rooted and grounded in that, that means you've awakened deeper and deeper and deeper. That means, where is your focus going? Now, by all means, participate. If you're in the United States, participate in the elections. Do that. Do that with the best of your conscience, where you vote for that. But your true hope, your source, always is, always was, and will ever be God. And it's your source whether you know God or not, whether you like him or not, whether you spit in his eye, whether you worship demons, it doesn't matter. He's still God, and he's still chosen you. Let's go to John 15:5. It says, I am the sprouting vine, and you're my branches. As you live in union with me as your source, fruitfulness will stream from within you. But when you live separated from me, you are powerless. So if we're feeling disempowered, hi, Linda, good morning. Hello from Minnesota. As you're living in life union with God as your source, fruitfulness will stream from within you. That is supernatural, right? So Jesus gave this mandate. Let me go back. I'll read it so I read it correctly. It says, I'm giving you a new commandment, that you love one another just as I have loved you. So loving one another, loving your enemies just as God loves your enemies, just as God loved us, right? Means that we really have no enemies. We just have people who don't know who they are. Now, in that, by all means, set boundaries. If there's toxicity, if there's dangerous people, by all means, set boundaries. I'm not saying be stupid. I'm saying how you frame it within yourself is your response of love. If you refuse, listen, you can be rebellious at the temptation to hate, the temptation to harden your heart, the temptation to lash out at someone, the temptation to do an eye for an eye, to take vengeance in your own hands. You can and should be rebellious against. That's why you're created in the image and likeness of love himself. And with that, entrust the injustice to God. To God. And he is brilliant, right? Is brilliant at working that out. As a matter of fact, he's the only one who can. Good morning, Cassandra. This is good news, a time message. Yes, thank you. I appreciate that, Cassandra. You know, the thing is this, we're all under pressure. We're all feeling the heat. We all have a temptation to be self-seeking and easily provoked, to be touchy, to be offended, to point fingers because we got fingers pointed back at us, pointed at us, right? To just lash out, that we are under pressure. Use the pressure. Oh my goodness, take advantage of the pressure to be better, to dig deeper into your source, because as you're living in life union, that's awareness, that's communion, that's Jesus, burn out these areas in me that want to lash, burn out these areas in me that want to keep these records of wrongs, that want to rehearse over and over and over how I was spitefully used and rightfully used to the nth degree, how I'm going to clamor for my rights. I'm going to clamor for, I'm going to clamor. burn that out of me so that I'm not so focused on me. And that's not to say to be a doormat. See, there's a balance, okay? But it is to say we're not taking it in our own hands. You're not taking, because you can be lovely in the midst of ugly. You can be beautiful. As a matter of fact, you're called to be beautiful in the midst of ugly. And what does beautiful look like? And you know what? It looks like Jesus on the cross. It looks like Jesus becoming sin for the very people that were torturing him in agony and forgiving them. That's you and me, by the way. Let's be very clear. That the ugliest parts of you, the parts that we don't show, or maybe some of the parts that have been surfacing now because things are under pressure. Well, if there's ugly things coming up, take advantage of that too. If there's ugly things coming up in you, take advantage of that for that to be cleansed and purified. You know, the fires of love are God's wrath. And what does God's wrath do? It burns off everything that's not of love's kind, because it loves, because he loves, because he is love himself. And you become the very image and likeness of love himself. And that's where the church is unstoppable. It's unstoppable. This is your time to shine. Obviously, it's dark, it's gross, it's ugly, and you can shine, be beautiful and life-giving because you're connected and to someone eternal, and you know it. And as you know it, you help awaken others to know that as well. Anyway, I hope this has been a blessing for you today. I've got a lot of this in my my book, Redeeming Beauty. It's kind of slow going, so just hang in there with me. Thank you for loving me anyway. But we will get that out at some point. And if you're needing some help, I'm giving a link for a free download for my How to Hear from God. Most of you have gotten this already, but some of you may have not. So if you want the sexy, glossy copy, that's on Amazon. But that free download, which is the exact same thing, you can just download that for free, incomplete. I have other resources too. You can go to my website, catherinetoon.com, if you're looking for that. I love you guys. Thank you for joining. Be your lovely self. Be love with legs on, yeah, and hands and feet. This is your time to shine. I love you guys. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.